Hello and welcome to the Welliverse with Tim and Chris.
Hello, time for episode 3 of the Welliverse. If you've never listened to our podcast before, my name's Chris.
And I'm Tim.
And we like to talk about all things health and fitness.
What's the topic this week?
The topic this week is food choices, how we decide what to eat.
Okay, I know what the topic is, it's just what are we calling it? So
Yeah.
food choices, how we're deciding what to eat.
Food choices.
Okay,
Yep.
sold.
Cool. So I guess that does sum it up pretty well. What we want to talk about this week is all the different factors that influence our diet. Every one of us is an individual with different experiences, and it just seems like a really hot topic at the moment. People, need to decide what they eat every day, and there's so many different things that come into play when we're making those choices. So Tim and I just wanted to, uncover maybe some of the food choices that we're making that we don't really think about that hard, or we don't think about the reasons behind them, and maybe that'll help, people who are struggling with what to eat to find a clearer path.
Yeah, before that,
Oh yes, our weekly question.
Chris, what have you put your energy into this week?
This week I have put my energy into practicing yoga. So I've been really lucky to have the middle of the day free at the moment because I'm on school holidays, and I've used that time to work on our business but also to go to yoga classes and actually really, really improve. Rather than just turn up and do it, I've been really focusing on how I can do it better, and that's been a blissful thing to work on this week. How about you, Tim?
I don't know, there's been no major project. I think the most eventful thing was trying to find our lost dog after we came back from New Year's and she'd escaped.
Yes.
So I think it's actually taken me all week to get over the stress of losing and then finding her. So
It was a joyous moment when we found her.
what reunion.
Yes, there was much rejoicing in the land.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. Tim and I, what did we do, babe? We sort of thought about 6 main factors that influence what we eat, and we divvied it up because we like to go away and do some separate research and then bring it together and see what we've come up with.
Yeah, so Chris is going to talk about social influences, about weight management and the nutrition aspects and the way emotion comes into eating. And I had a look at how our food choices impact the environment, about choosing food based on price and also based on performance. So we're going to just have a chat about a few things that we've found and just opinions that we hold.
Yeah.
And maybe you can get in touch and let us know whether you think we're onto it or whether you think something different.
And by the way, when we use the word diet in this podcast, we mean what you eat.
Not like a regime that you're on just temporarily to lose weight. Like it's just the sum total of the food that you eat makes up your diet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, good clarification. All right. So what I really am majorly interested in at the moment is the social influence of how we decide what to eat. And I looked at a few different aspects of that. One thing that really intrigues me is our family background and how that really shapes our food choices, and how in some ways it can be really hard to diverge from that ever, which is, it becomes ingrained in you. So, from a very, very, from the start of your life, your parents or whoever's looking after you calls the shots.
Breast or bottle?
Breast or bottle, that's it. Good one. And they determine what food is in the fridge and the pantry. They determine when you eat. They try and enforce how much you eat. We've all heard, you've got to have at least 3 more bites of your veggies before you can have your ice cream. And so I think it's fairly universal to say that our food agency doesn't really start until later in childhood.
Agency's a big word.
Agency is a big word. Making your own decisions.
Right.
Taking ownership over your food choices. It's funny though, because I used to babysit when I was young, and I know that little babies know what they like and what they don't like very early on. Yes, they want some foods in their mouth. No, they do not like other foods in their mouth. And that really interests me. But anyway, that's a bit beside the point. I think when you sort of grow a bit older, and you start becoming aware that eating is a thing, it's like a social thing. There's events where we eat, you watch other people eat, you watch the way people present food to you or the conversations that people around you have about food. You know, if you've grown up in a family where your mother's always saying, oh, you know, I can't have another slice of cake, oh, I shouldn't, I don't want to be naughty, you know, then you're going to be really influenced by that. Kids are like sponges. They hear all of that and they very quickly associate, you know, naughty foods and good
I don't
foods.
get the moral connection with food, like it's good or it's bad. It's just food.
It's just food, but I think it's when it has power over people.
Yeah, like I was bad, or this
I was
food
bad,
is
I had a
bad. It's
chocolate
like, oh, it's just food.
Yeah. And I like the difference between children from different families, you know, what they're allowed to have at home, what's considered a special treat. The way that you're brought up really, really determines the framework that you view food through, I think. For example, when we were growing up, we had drinks and soft drink at dinner time. And I remember if I went over to a friend's house...
Not in my house, in Chris's house.
In my house. I remember if I went to a friend's house and they were only allowed water, I literally thought it was like their children were in prison. Like I was like, wow, that's way harsh. You know, and that's just because I viewed that as being deprived of something nice. And I had no understanding of nutrition. It was just like, well, why wouldn't you have the things that you love? But it's so interesting how we do compare what we eat to what other people eat. And yeah, as you grow older and older, you're starting to make your own decisions, but still we can't really get away from that social influence of others. You know, it moves from our family influencing us to our friendship group influencing us, you know. Let's go out for pizza. Okay, I guess we're eating pizza, you know. And you don't sort of want to rock the boat, I think, a lot. And yeah, especially as an adult, I mean, we see with the drinking culture, that's a really significant thing. It's sort of like no one wants to be the one who's different. So we all just either join in or awkwardly don't, and people feel sort of off-put if someone doesn't partake. Like if you're at a birthday party and someone's offering cake and you're like, oh, no, thank you. It's like, what?
Awkward.
So awkward. Just take the damn cake. It's funny, isn't it? So there is this definite social pressure.
Food means things. Someone puts their effort and love into it,
Yes.
and it has
a
symbol as well as nutritional value.
Yeah.
So don't be a jerk and just have some cake.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, food can be a real symbol of hospitality and generosity. We like to show people that we care about them by cooking them a meal or, you know, taking them out to a restaurant or something. And like in Western society, food is just such a huge social thing. When do we ever have a gathering without it? We don't, really. I can't think of one. And, you know, I feel like it's just getting more and more chaotic each celebration. There's a new food product that they're trying to make into a tradition, or it just seems like there's an ever-increasing list of things that we need to cook or have or eat. What do you think, Tim, about the impact of social media on our food choices?
Well, I suppose it depends how much and what social media you consume, but it's an interesting thing that has potential for, you know, food inspo and giving you great ideas and depends
making you
what
aware
you're
of things that you
subscribing
don't know.
to. And if there's fresh and different and, you know, that's what interests you, then you're lucky and you're going to get good quality stuff coming in. But there's also the scary potential for
you to feel bad about what you eat or
sort of,
yourself. You know,
and it depends on your coping mechanisms that you know you had instilled in you by your family and your interactions with your friends about how, you know, you think, oh, I should be having a salad, that makes me feel bad, and you end up eating something else because of the negative feelings that you have around your skills and all that.
And I think too, we make so many assumptions about what each other eat based on just the small amount that we see.
Yes, the one little snapshot.
So yeah, when you've got girlfriends, like I know this is really common growing up. I was a heavier girl at school, and my friends were quite thin, and all I could see was, how can they be so skinny? We sit down at recess and lunch. I see what they eat. Like, yeah, they eat healthier maybe than I do, but I didn't sort of think I should be that much different. But it's because you don't know what choices people are making when they're not with you. If someone says, oh, I seem to be able to eat whatever I want and not put on weight, they might be eating 2 Mars bars a day and nothing else. So then, yeah, they can eat crap and not put on weight. But
also in that feeling, the cognitive dissonance of how come I'm not as skinny or as fit looking as them. I think everyone who has some value for health thinks I have a pretty good diet, but they don't actually count the half a block of chocolate they eat at a time.
We're really good at blocking out.
Or they just count as normal because it's normal for their family, the bottle of Coke that's on the dinner table every night. It's like, no, we have a healthy diet. There's salad in our fridge, but they don't actually understand what is appropriate and what isn't because they've only got their own context and their own frame of reference.
Yeah. I think just something to be aware of socially when it comes to social eating choices is it's actually okay to stick to your own, I guess, guns. Like as an adult,
there's an art to being gracious.
Yeah, you can be gracious, but the whole you must eat everything that's served up to you. Well, MasterChef, right, has, in my opinion, just driven the world crazy. Like portion sizes that are served to us in a restaurant, they need to look just absolutely fabulous and amazing, and they're often so unbalanced and out of control.
Yeah, like a huge portion of meat and maybe a little sort of, sweet potato puree, and then that's the meal with some butter dribbled over it.
Exactly, and it's kind of like, think about you as an individual. I personally am a really short little woman, so whatever gets served up to me at a restaurant, it's not really appropriate for me to eat the whole thing. It's excessive. So, yeah, I suppose socially you've got to be prepared to just have your own integrity, but also be polite. And, it's interesting.
Take in that influence that's surrounding you, family, friends, media, but then
learn from it.
Reflect on how it's affecting you and make a change.
Make your own choices.
Yeah.
Yeah. One last thing that I did want to say about the social influences of what to eat is that I think we've got to be cautious of judging people based on what they eat. Like, we make a lot of inferences about a person's education or, how fit they are or how healthy they are. And I think health is becoming an increasingly popular commodity. We look at the celebrities or the social media stars and we think, oh, wow, like those people are the be-all and end-all.
Yeah.
You don't actually know how healthy those people are. You can be skinny and be eating a very poor diet. So I think people...
Yeah, skinny does not
skinny
equal
doesn't
healthy.
equal healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important
like
to...
you can be skinny and healthy, but it doesn't equal healthy.
Yeah. So I guess we just need to not be looking around too much and worrying too much about what everyone else is eating. Thinking more, what's right for me? How can I learn what's right for my body?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's helpful.
The next thing is environmental factors. I had a look around to see how the food choices that people make can impact the environment. And I came across a website from the Victorian government in Australia. And something that they had there was, according to their EPA, their Environmental Protection Authority, the food we as Australians eat makes up 28% of our ecological footprint. So impact on the environment, through the pollution that we make, the cars that we drive, almost a third of our impact on the environment is through our food choices.
Crazy.
So it's a huge chunk of what we can be doing to minimise our impact on our planet and our environment. So there are lots of little corners in how food choices impact the environment, and you can keep researching as much as you like. People talk about things like sourcing seasonal local food. So, and the concept of food miles. How far has your food travelled to you? Has it been picked down the road and only travelled a short distance, or has it had to burn a jet load of fuel to travel from California to get to you and be refrigerated the whole time?
This topic just blows my mind because I'm 25 and I only started thinking about this 2 years ago. Not even. How much of our lives do we spend you just take it for granted that you go to the supermarket, you get your food off the shelf,
there on the shelf and
magically.
Yep.
You think, oh yeah, it comes from the farm, I know how it all works, but you don't think of actually the resources that go into it and how that
and you're there. There's two sort of trays of oranges. One's made in California, one's made in Australia.
And lucky us, we just choose the ones that look better.
Yeah, we just go which one's shinier and what is the price.
Which one looks more delicious.
Then we're out of there.
Yeah.
Okay, so food miles, seasonal food, how the food itself impacts on land and water. So whether there's pollution involved in the production of the food, how the food's actually packaged. So if you're buying single serve things in plastic boxes, all of that plastic waste is actually a big impact on the pollution that's surrounding your food consumption, and overfishing is another big thing as well. And I suppose more generally how our food choices affect biodiversity.
Absolutely.
Out there just collapsing natural ecosystems through selectively targeting one sort of size of fish so that the fish above and below them in the chain don't have enough to eat. But what I've sort of looked into the most just recently is a study by RMIT down in Victoria again, and they have just recently published what they called a GWP league table, which is a global warming potential of a whole bunch of different foods. It was a really big study, like a meta-analysis that took all of these other smaller studies and tried to find, on average, how much it was CO2 equivalent, so all of the different types of greenhouse gases, but sort of approximated into what it would be if it was just carbon dioxide. So how much global warming greenhouse gas impact different types of food have. And I don't think there's really that much public awareness of how much greenhouse gas comes out of the production and the consumption of our different food types. So what this RMIT study showed was that things like grains, fruit and vegetables have the lowest impact, then sort of nuts and pulses and legumes and things like that. Medium impact with things like chicken and pork, so those white meats, and things with the highest impact and the highest CO2 equivalent with things like beef and lamb, and just staggeringly significantly greater amounts of impact.
And do you know what I think is hard? We can't see in real time the effect that has. Like, people can say numbers. They can say, to produce 44 grams of Australian beef.
Are you reading my notes?
Yeah, I'm reading your notes.
Yeah.
That makes 1 kilogram of greenhouse gas, right? So that's less beef than a serve for a small person.
Okay, so I'll explain that.
Yeah.
So in the production of food, if you're allowed to only make 1 kilo of greenhouse gas as a byproduct, and then you had to stop producing your food on average, that 1 kilo of pollution would get you 2.6 kilos of oats. That's a lot of oats, a lot of porridge. It'd make you 1 kilo of lentils. That's 1 to 1. It would only make you 290 grams of eggs or chicken. It seems to be about the same there. But it would only make you...
a lot of eggs.
That kilo of greenhouse gas pollution would only make you 44 grams of Aussie beef.
Yeah.
Like, that's... Most Australian males would be looking for something 10 times that size if they're looking for a good meal.
Yes. Oh, and not that they should, by the way. They don't need that much beef.
Yeah.
But that's another story. But anyway, what I'm saying is, like, you can say those numbers, but they mean very little, I think, to the average person, because we don't see how that then translates to harm to the environment. And I think it would be awesome if there was more awareness of that. But instead, we've just got more of a push in Western society to eat more beef. So
there's marketing and there's...
Yeah.
But if you're looking to make a difference in how the food choices you make impact the environment, the biggest things you can do is to eat locally and to reduce whatever that means for you, your consumption of meat.
Yeah.
Especially those really sort of highly ruminant animals like sheep and cows.
Yeah.
So, if you were eating beef every night, you replaced a couple of those beefs with some chicken.
And reduce your portion size.
If you had a couple of nights of vegetarian, there would be a vastly different impact on the environment.
Absolutely. Yes, I think that's really useful to think about. And I think that's probably something that affects people's choices the least. Like I said before, but for some people it's huge. Oh, for some people it dictates, their whole... It's one of those things where once you become really aware of it, you feel like you can't really ignore it. Yeah, well, you either have to totally ignore it, or you have to actually make a change, which is really hard. It is hard. And I struggled with it when we first learnt about all of this. If you want to know more about it, by the way, there's 2 really great documentaries that we've watched called Forks Over Knives and Cowspiracy. And both of those, obviously, you have to be aware that they're coming from a very biased and, persuasive perspective, but still they're really interesting. They present a lot of things that you don't know that are going on in the production of the food that we eat. Also, a lot of the sort of ethics, like if we think about just the 200, 300 gram porterhouse steak that sits on our plate in the restaurant, while, what is it, percentage of the world's population that is starving. Like, it just, you can't ignore the disparity. We have making so me think much of the excess. Matrix. Ignorance is bliss. Yeah, well, it is in a way, but I feel like we're all responsible for making more mindful choices. And just do what you can. Learn a little bit more about it and, reflect on how that should affect your food choices, I reckon. Cool. So my next point was weight management and nutrition. I feel like they're often really blurred together, those two, but they're both very different in terms of how they should influence our choices with food. Yeah. But a lot of people would just put them in the same group in their mind. Everyone thinks I have to lose weight to be healthy. And food is seen as the way to achieve that, food and exercise. But often people will want to go on a diet, and I've done speech quotations, but you guys can't see me, because I mean they want to go on a specific diet, a plan that someone has written that is supposed to hold the key to magically making them skinny. Skinny doesn't equal healthy. Yeah. I think that's a huge point that a lot of people, even though they know that, they still struggle to believe it. So I don't know if you're listening, you probably have heard of a BMI before, your body mass index, and that's just used as an indicator of your healthy weight range. And that's the thing, it's a range. You can be healthy within about 15 kilos. Yeah, depends on your height. Depending on your height. There's a range of healthy. And so it's not one magic number on the scale or one way you have to look. Yeah, and so that takes into account your actual genetic factors to create that range. So it assumes that you can be healthy plus or minus a little bit of weight, but also it's because it's just a guess. It does actually account for a little bit of muscle mass, a little bit of actual body composition types. Yeah, but the healthy is a lifestyle and a mindset as well, and a mindset, happiness. Much more than a number on a scale. And I think, so when people are making choices about what to eat because they want to lose weight, I think often a lot of pretty crazy things can happen. A lot of people will banish a certain food group, believing that they just can't have that if they want to be healthy or they want to be, skinny, toned. Yeah. Didn't want to say it. I was like, well, yeah. And also people quite often make just some really bizarre choices. Like they just don't eat and then they binge, but then they feel so awful that they don't eat. Yeah. And again, that's that sort of tying into the moral implication. I'm a bad person because I need to eat. Look, everyone needs to eat. And setting yourself up with just a carrot stick and a bit of lettuce because that's a great lunch. Like, where on Instagram did you find that diet plan? Like, yeah. And I think it can be really hard for people these days because there's so many people out there saying, listen to me, this is how we should eat. This is how to be healthy. This is how to be skinny. This is how to do blah, blah, blah. This is how to boost your brain power through food. And yeah, food is literally what you're made of. Your body is made up of what you eat, but it doesn't actually have to be that complicated.
Yeah. So it can actually be a really powerful and helpful thing to think as you're, holding something in the supermarket.
Yeah.
And before it goes into your trolley, you can actually think, how will this benefit my health? Is this going to be good for my nutritional status?
Yeah.
And
yeah, a lot of people sort of, when they want to eat for either nutrition or weight loss, a lot of people can get quite fixated on counting calories and thinking about their macronutrients and this and that. And I get people asking me on my Living Moving Being account all the time, what's your balance of macros? I want a body just like yours. And I just say to them, you've got your body and you can use food and exercise to make it the best it can be. But don't let yourself get into that relationship with food where it's owning you and you're petrified of it. What I do encourage everyone to do is get to know the basics of food. Get to know what's in the food you're eating. No food is inherently evil. Food is just a thing.
Yeah, and portion sizes you can be aware of.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you can be surprised at how much energy is in a thing, and you could just have no idea.
Yep. And
I remember at work, one of the doctors I was talking to about how, energy-wise, would you prefer a slice of bread or a beer? And he's like, no way, there's the same amount of energy in that. Like, yeah,
exactly.
mate.
Like pretty much to the number.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really funny how people don't know. Like, I'll sit and watch some people eat a whole avocado and be like, man, why am I not able to lose weight? And I'm like, dude, you know that thing's supposed to last you like a week. Like, it's not something to consume en masse. It's really good for you, but and it's like what I was saying before, the sort of food social Instagram phenomenon that we have in MasterChef, it's all built around excess. It's all built around the aesthetics of looking at the food on the plate. And when
Which
you
is a huge part of the enjoyment of it, and your
you eat with your
eyes light up and your
yeah.
stomach starts growling.
But yeah, when you're actually eating for health, you really do need to know, hey, okay, what's in this serve of avocado? What does a serve of avocado actually need to look like? And it does actually take a while, I think, to get to know what you need. You've got to think about your activity levels, your requirements for your health, and like a lot of people don't even know sort of their what's going on inside their body, what their body needs.
Yeah, and everyone's already currently eating a diet.
Something. Yes.
And so if their question is, how do I put on weight? Well, the answer is eat exactly what you're eating plus a little bit more. How do I lose weight? Eat exactly what you're eating minus a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a little while, and if that hasn't worked, eat a little bit less again.
But
now, how do I be healthier? Well, have a look at the types of foods that you're eating and see if there's anything you can swap out so that you're supporting yourself.
I love that as a really easy way for people to think, because with weight loss, people seem to want to think there's some magical fix. Really, energy in, energy out.
Yeah.
And knowing
and
how
people
much
go
energy
nuts with it, and they
do.
end up with a plate full of carrots and lettuce because
I love how that's your example. I love carrots. Water.
It's
food.
just like 2 little sticks of shriveled carrot and just a little bit of floppy lettuce on a plate, because they try and be the best they can at doing the diet thing, and it just doesn't work like that. Yeah. It's just, you already have systems and a lot of reasons for what you're currently eating because it works for you and that's what you've been taught and that's the skills you've got. To think you can just change everything about how you shop, cook, plan, everything, it's just not going to work. No. So you've got to have something that's really similar to what you're currently able to do, and then just change a couple of things.
And do some research. Like, actually say, I'm going to learn about food. I'm going to learn how to eat well. Not I'm going to learn how to be skinny. I'm going to learn how to eat well for my body. So there's loads of actual great sources of information out there. Look at government websites. They're usually very balanced and helpful in terms of nutrition. We'll put some good websites in the notes.
Yeah, on my Instagram, I posted the Australian government's dietary guidelines, which are a plate that's divided into portions, and it has grains, cereals, sort of carbohydrate sources. It has fresh fruits and vegetables, meats and legumes, and dairy and soy, and then water on the side.
Yeah.
And put that up. Some people are like, yeah, I kind of agree, except no carbs. And it's like, okay, But I wonder what their diet actually looks like and how many carbs they do have. Like if they're totally keto, that's a totally different story. But I reckon a lot of people who think, no carbs, they're
probably consuming a lot that they don't know are carbs.
They've fallen to a marketing wagon, but they're still probably having a fair ratio of carbs in their diet.
Yeah, it's interesting. Tim and I know quite a bit about food now because we've done lots of research about it in the last few years. We made our own eating guide to accompany a workout program that we made because we do believe that food is just an essential part of being healthy. And because of all the research that we did, we got to know energy densities and things like that, nutritional values really well. And I forget sometimes that not everyone has done that and knows all of that.
At work the other day, one of the girls asked, what's your favourite nut? And I was like, probably an almond. And she's like, mine's a cashew. I'm like, yeah, cashews aren't bad, but I suppose almonds have slightly higher fibre. And she was just like, what? Like, how is that even a factor for you? I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm just making conversation ready.
Yes, I think too, what I love doing is opening someone's little mind universe about what's in the food that they love. They say, all I had for lunch was a piece of banana bread and a cappuccino. Surely I should be losing weight. Because, that's not a proper meal. That's 4 chicken salads.
Yeah.
That's 4 chicken salads.
Of energy.
Of energy. Exactly. Yeah. So it's like sitting down to eat 4 healthy meals.
Yeah, and a fair amount of saturated fat.
And lots of saturated. And that's not even getting into the actual nutrients in it. That's just purely the energy. If someone of my size sits down to eat a chunk of banana bread from McCafe, that's more than half of what I need in a day. Done. So, people don't necessarily know these things, and I think that's why it's really good for everyone to just go and do some research. Just look at the label on the food packet or research how much energy is in this. Go to myidealfigure.com and that'll give you a little bit of an indication of how much energy you actually need in a day. And I think a lot of people say, don't count calories, but I say just at least be aware of them or know what they are. By the way, in Australia we say kilojoules, and it's a different scale. And I think you got to know kilojoules rather than calories because every label in Australia is in kilojoules. So stop thinking about calories because a lot of people make mistakes with their maths.
Yeah.
Anyway, don't let it make you obsessed. Just be a bit aware. It's a really useful thing.
Yeah.
Just know what's in your food. Yeah.
The next thing that I thought about was price. And it's another mammoth thing. There's lots of research looking at how socioeconomic status and education impacts people's health and I suppose their weight as well. There's some studies that show an inverse relationship between socioeconomic class or sort of social status and education with weight. So the poorer you are, the less educated you are, the more likely that you are overweight or obese. And
before you go on, I think it's really interesting that if you just look at history, being fat was a symbol of wealth. Being fat was having more than you need. Now, because of the type of food that has been manufactured and how cheaply it can be done, we're talking the fast food, the takeaway, the highly processed sugar, high saturated fat foods. You can go and buy a cheeseburger for $2 And that's just scary because it's just full of what you don't need, empty of nutrition, really. And yeah, people who haven't been brought up in an environment where they've got choice or access to purchase good quality food, it's a real issue, and it's insane to think that that's one of the biggest diseases in our society. Like, it's crazy.
And I actually looked at whether a healthy diet is more expensive or not, and the studies on that.
Yeah, because
And
that's a big thing that people complain about.
Your opinion that you just shared, which is it's so cheap to go and get a Macca's meal,
Is what people think.
Like, it's just so much easier to have this cheap, convenient food that I know is bad for me, but we're so time poor, and look how overweight we are. But it's because of all of these factors, and like there's definitely a lot of truth in there. What the research comes down to is that it depends on education, and that a healthy diet can be done with the right education on an appropriate budget.
Definitely.
And like everything in life, it depends on your priorities. Whether you're willing to put in the time and the effort to understand how to do it, that's the deciding factor.
Yeah.
Like with our environmental aspect, a great way to reduce costs is to replace one of your previous beef meals with another protein source, like chicken.
Or lentils.
Mm-hmm. So,
and lentils are far cheaper than meat.
Yes. And that's objectively healthier. There's
and nutritionally, there's benefits to that as well. There's nutrients that different foods, like variety, is really good for you.
Yes, so not just the thing itself is good, but the variety in your diet is a really good idea.
Absolutely. It also goes back to what we were saying about our society getting carried away with excessive amounts of food. You think about how much food we throw out of what we buy, whether it be at a restaurant, whether it be at home. People think, it's expensive to eat healthy. Well, not necessarily. It's if you're smart about what you buy, when you buy, making effort to actually prepare it and use it, pre-planning, just be prepared. Because it's worth it. It's worthwhile.
Yeah, and you're going to be eating for the rest of your life.
That's it.
I think the problem is that short-term need food right now and then be surprised in 3 hours when you're crashing and you need more food again.
Because all you ate was, something that didn't sustain you.
I'd say wealth without health is not wealth.
The thing that actually is more of an influence on your choice in food is your education, which often goes hand in hand with your socioeconomic background. So it's less about how much money people have and more about the environment that they've been placed in and whether or not they know about food.
Back to your first point,
exactly.
Your social influences,
it's all tied up.
What your family taught you and what is normal to do on the way home from school, or what is normal to be doing for a Sunday dinner.
And I mean, we're just thinking in our society, we're actually ridiculously lucky in that we can choose what to eat. Some people are like not even sure where their next bit of sustenance is going to come from. And I think we need to step back when we're stressing over which type of food to eat or which sausages are cheaper per kilo because, money's a bit tight this week. We can get carried away when it doesn't have to be that complicated.
We can, but I don't like thinking like that because the stress that people feel is
real.
Still real stress.
That's true.
So, I would never sort of think like that.
Yeah, okay.
But it's true. It's true. Like, objectively, on the scale of how much do we have? Like, we have so much ease of access and amazing fresh food. So, like, the positive from that is to be able to, like, really enjoy being able to explore flavors and cook and, like, live an amazing experience because that's what we've been given, and there's no benefit to not do that.
I do love what we said before about local produce and even growing your own, giving it a go to see if you can actually produce some of the things that you're going to eat yourself. It can be done. We don't do it yet. We should. I know a lot of people who have their own chooks or who have a veggie garden, and I really admire those people, and I think it gives them a better value and ownership over what they're eating. And it does actually cut out a lot of the drama and a lot of the issues related to what we eat. You know, all the stuff we've been talking about with environmental impact and price of food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While I was researching this, I came across a thing called Incredible Edible, which is a community outreach program, I suppose, in the north of the UK, in a town called Todmorden. And the whole concept is sort of the drive and vision of this one woman who brought this fairly small community together. And the idea is every single open space in the community that is able to have edible things grown on it has stuff planted on it or pots in it.
Really cool.
And to start with, there's a bit of a team of people around her, and they would just plant things in open spaces, in public spaces, and edible things would just start growing there. People jumped on board, and now there's vegetable tourism where people come to see how they've just incorporated so many edible things into an urban landscape.
Isn't that amazing?
They also share all of that knowledge
Which country
about...
is this in?
In the UK.
It's amazing.
They share all of that knowledge about how to grow it, but then they're also finding that people who are free to come into your front garden and take whatever you're growing, they don't take it all, they just take what they need.
Yep.
But there's now this link of community, and they're interested in how to cook it and what to do with it, and it sounds like an amazing thing.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah.
Incredible Edible in Todmorden.
Yeah, look it up. That's so interesting. All right, we might jump to our last sort of influencing factor. Is it the last one? No.
Your last, yep.
My last one is emotional eating. Now, this is a huge one for a lot of people. I personally have definitely had a bit of a journey with this. As a child, I was really, really food driven. Food was my happy place, definitely. Specific foods, you know, things like cinnamon donuts and mint slices and hash browns. They made me feel good. You know, the taste goes onto your tongue, sends little happy signals to your brain, and it doesn't take much for people to start learning to eat in order to get happy. And not everyone has that impulse. It's stronger in some people than others, and quite often that's where a lot of people run into problems with eating or with weight gain, is they eat as a way of making themselves feel happy, which is often why depression can be accompanied by pretty significant weight gain or other health issues, because you're only seeking out certain types of nutrition, not, you know, getting a balanced diet. But it can also go the other way. So I know a lot of people who, when they're really stressed, they just won't eat at all. And it's like this mental block. They're too stressed to eat. They just can't even make the choice of what to eat. It's all too hard. Or they're anxious. They're highly anxious. And it's just, they just sort of can't even comprehend eating. And I feel like most people are either one way or the other. Some people, it is important to mention, are pretty balanced in this and don't really have an emotional eating thing. But I think it's important to look at some of the foods that you eat, not because you're hungry, not because you are in a certain social setting, but it's kind of the choices that you make when you're by yourself and you're like, oh, I'm bored, let's go to the fridge.
Maybe the answer's in the fridge. Yeah, maybe
the answer's in the fridge, because I've had positive experiences in that fridge before.
Yep. It's the same neural circuits as just rechecking your Facebook 2 minutes after you closed
it. You're
maybe
still
I'm hungry.
searching
Maybe
for
that's
something.
what I'm meant to be doing right now.
And it's really easy to get carried away with that. And I know that I've talked to a lot of girls who have troubles with binge eating, and they say, the more I binge eat, the worse I feel about it. So the more I binge eat, because the worse I feel about it. And it's just this big spiral. And again, it's getting into that trap of thinking that a certain food is naughty, or that eating is wrong or bad.
So what's the answer?
What I quite often say is you are the only one who is making that choice. The food isn't choosing for you. Quite often I think people do, and I know, Tim, you find this a bit harder to understand because you haven't ever struggled with it, but a lot of people feel owned by that packet of M&Ms that's sitting in the cupboard. And it's almost like they don't have a choice. They want it so badly.
Yeah.
They think it's going to make them happy.
Yeah.
And it works for a couple of seconds. And then it's gone, and then there's the guilt. No. The food makes everything better.
Oh, right.
While it's being consumed, and then as soon as it's gone, it's like, well, what did I just
need more.
do?
Yeah.
Crap, I suck. Let's go get more. And yeah, it can be really dangerous. So, as in, just not even for your nutrition, it's dangerous for your psychology to let something own you like that.
So, how do you get over it?
You see food for what it really is. It's something that's there to build your body, to make your body healthy, to enjoy appropriately, mindfully, and you find other things that make you happy that you can do.
Yeah, so recognising that cue that you have to go do something that you've already recognised as unhealthy and have some other options to replace that with that are appropriate.
Exactly. And being honest with yourself too. Say, okay, like the Snickers bar is in my hand. Why am I going to eat this? Is it because I think it's going to make me feel better? Do I need it? Is it going to help me? Now, if you decide, you know what, I just want it that badly, I'm going to eat it. Then eat it, but don't feel bad about it and don't whinge about it. Like, we have to own the choices that we make with our food. Eat it, move on. Okay? Don't let it...
Really enjoy it.
Yeah, really, really enjoy it while you're eating it.
And if it's rubbish...
Then think, actually, should I be seeking out something that's worth it?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think too, that advice, replace it with something useful that will make you happy.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, I just did a workout, I'm trying to lose weight, but hey, I went for a run, so I deserve to scarf down a McDonald's meal. It's just counterintuitive. Say, hey, I did a run, I feel great. Now I've earned a bubble bath or a massage, or even not.
Or as part of my plan,
it's
I
the
know that I've
satisfaction of
got
running.
this appropriate nutrition strategy just along with my physical activity plan, so that my recovery is going to be optimized, and I'm going to have all of these things in my body so that I can be stronger and better next time I go and work out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which is leading into your next point. But I just want to say quickly too, food as a reward can be a pretty difficult thing to get into. And we do it a lot with kids. I am a teacher, and I know a lot of teachers use lollies and jelly beans and chocolate as a reward for getting an answer right.
I think that's a huge part of where emotional eating comes from. It's the patterns that are developed when children are growing up and dealing with issues.
Oh, you've been good, we'll take you to McDonald's.
Yes.
Or, oh, mummy's stressed, we want to be happy, let's go to McDonald's.
Yep.
So we just say, okay, well, the easy, quick, fast, cheap, fatty, sugary, delicious food, that's what you seek when things are falling apart. And ironically, when things are falling apart is when you most need to be taking care of your nutrition.
Another thing that I came across while I was researching this is how much taste of food is influenced by things outside of our mouth. So one step further than our tongue and our taste buds is the actual crunch of a chip, or the feeling of it in your teeth, or the sound of it in your ears. And there was a study done where they had just the same packet of chips, and all of the participants had earphones on, and the sound that they would hear would be modified, and the freshness and the flavour and the enjoyment of the chip is different depending on the perceived crunch of the thing. And
it's
that's just one
the
aspect.
Temperature of our coffee that bothers us.
Yes.
And everyone's actually got their own particular temperature that they like.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
That's just one little example and one aspect of how everything's connected about food in us. The environment that we eat it in.
The people who are around us.
The last time we had that thing, we loved it, and so maybe if we do that again,
we'll repeat that
same feeling will happen. The people that we were with, and the way it made us feel.
That good feeling,
Yeah, and what you can do is you can actually understand that this appropriate, healthy meal that I've got here it has positive associations too, because it's going to help me to feel better in the long run. Maybe it's not what I'm craving because I've set up some bad habits previously, but you can actually look at that and think, wow, that is a good meal.
And that's going to make me, my body, my person, my brain happy.
And that's my last main point here, which is eating for performance. And I think it's actually a really great positive thing to think about. And maybe the best way that I think of, not that I'm an educator of food for children, but the best way to actually teach kids how to sort of have positive, useful thoughts and sort of mindsets about how to eat well. You know, we don't eat that because that's not going to help our bodies to run faster or to grow up and be strong. So, you know, the reason we're eating all of these foods is because, they taste great and, you know, they're going to be good for us. And if we put these things into our bodies, then our engines are going to go faster and going to be able to run further and jump higher. And kids can really grab onto that and do something with it. And, you know, as adults, we can choose something because of a belief in how it's going to affect our ability to perform. So we've got, you know, lots of different regimes and protocols about what to eat when and how, and you know, you've got your
pre-workout, your post-workout.
So supplements, and you got caffeine and all of these other, you know, BCAAs.
But there's also the macro, you know, counting depending on what type of activity you're doing. And you know, depending on what kind of activity you're doing, what is actually going to be an optimal diet for you is going to vary a little, but mostly it's going to be based around eating good quality food in the right amounts at the right time. Yeah, and I think it's interesting to note that, particularly if you're someone who does a lot of exercise, it's fine for your diet to be really different one year to the next. When I say really different, I mean you can adjust what you eat and have different amounts of the different sort of nutrients based on what you want to be able to do with your body. You can and you should. Like if you're into that, go for it. So when we were marathon training, I definitely ate more carbohydrates intentionally, good quality carbohydrates, much more in the way of pasta and rice and bread, because, and when I say much more, I was still very mindful of my portions, but that was a bigger component of my diet than it is now. Now I'm weightlifting and doing far less endurance-based activities. And so I am finding out each day what balance works for my body, and what fuels my activity. And I think it's fine to recognize that you may not get it right straight away. So just try, put together a mindful plan and try it out for 2 to 3 weeks so you can see what effect it's having on your energy levels, and your muscle growth or the way you feel when you're training. And yeah, it's okay to have to go through a few 2-week cycles and tweak and adjust until you find what you're really happy with, I think. But yeah, what else did you want to say about that, Tim?
Not much, other than it's just such a positive thing to be able to think about and useful if you're trying to decide what to eat for me and for my health. If you can just take your decision through that process of what's going to help me to perform better tomorrow, that's a really great way to make the decision a little bit clearer with some positivity.
True.
You know, like this is going to help me run a bit faster. Yeah,
but what about the obsession with meal prep and people feeling like they're sort of punishing their body with this bland same meal every day? I mean, a lot of people dig meal prep. It makes them feel happy to know that they've got on top of it. You know, they've set up all their little containers of breakfast, lunch and dinner, and they're totally in the game. Their head is in the zone for eating for performance. And that's fine if they're enjoying that and if they're getting everything they need. But I do think also there's also the time and place for it. If you go out with friends on the weekend and, you know, you're like, well, no, this doesn't fit into my macro. Like, you can subtly be quiet and figure it out yourself with whatever you order. But, yeah, I think there's a time and a place also for relaxing, even when eating for performance.
Yeah, well, it's weird that of the 6 topics we've talked about, we didn't have just straight up enjoyment. Like, that's a huge factor for why we choose what to eat.
I guess that comes into the emotional eating a bit.
Yeah.
Like, and sharing food, eating together makes us happy. Eating. We enjoy eating and we enjoy talking about eating.
And that's a huge component of health, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, so if you're miserable eating healthy food, well, in a huge sense, that's not healthy food because health's not just, you know, the pure physical, it's the
mental,
social and emotional health. So
if you're beating yourself up or if you're hating, if you're experiencing turmoil over it, it's not healthy.
So many different aspects in the air, but healthy food is going to be something that you actually feel good about.
Yeah.
And if it's not feeling good, then
find something that does, that still fits into the healthy category. There are so many good foods out there. You can definitely find a balance that works for you. There was one last thing I wanted to say. It's my favourite quote that Dr. Carl always says, and he's actually quoting Michael Pollan, is it? This is really good advice. If you're feeling completely overwhelmed, no idea how to choose what to eat, this is what I follow, and I think it's great. He says, eat real food, not too much, mostly plants. Love it.
So you shouldn't have to look at the ingredients on the thing because the thing is an ingredient.
The thing. Yeah.
Yes. How much
real
whatever
food
is in this tomato? Well, it's 100% tomato.
Yeah. And the not too much isn't, you know, starve yourself. It's just don't go overboard, man. Just be mindful. And the mostly plants part, well, it's good for the environment.
And good for you?
Yeah.
Mostly.
Love it. Awesome. Well, we really hope you've enjoyed this episode. We've certainly enjoyed our chat. And yeah, as always, submit your topics to us. If you want to hear about something in particular, we are crazy and we're happy to sit around and do a lot of research and have a lot of discussion so that we can talk about something that you're interested in. So send us through a message. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram, either at Living Moving Being or at The Fit Physio. We're on Facebook too, and our website is www.lmbfitness.com. So yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.